Hello, welcome everybody to the WeCrochet YouTube page and Facebook channel. I think I got that right. No, YouTube channel, Facebook page. Oh my gosh, I don't know what day of the week it is, so give me a little grace here. But it is so great to be here and to see all of you today. I love getting to chat with all of you, and when I have special guests to chat with too, who we're going to bring in just a minute. As you guys come in, say hi, say hello. I see people are coming in. Hi, Angela. Hi, Chris. Hi, Natasha. Hi, Heather. It is so great to have all of you guys here live. And if you're watching the replay, it's okay. We still love having you. If you have questions, either live or during the replay, go ahead and put them in the chat. We'll answer them live if they're live comments. If they're not, we have a wonderful social media person. Her name is Isabel, and she will be answering all of your additional questions over there or asking, and we'll get you the answers as quickly as possible. Hi, Chris. It is great to see you too. I always have to put it in quotes because I mean, you can see me, I can't see you, but I'm seeing you. I see your little icon show up. It all counts. So great to have you guys here today. I do want to tell you, here is my Heatherly cowl that I have. If you don't know, we're going to put a link in here for you about our crochet along that we have going on right now using Heatherly yarn and our rainbowed pullover. It's the adult version. There is a child version as well if you want to do that instead. But yeah, here is my project so far with my color choices. When we did the video last week, I had the one panel. Now I've got two panels. I actually have the sleeves done. I'm at the point of adding my ribbing and seaming up. So I'm so excited. Fingers crossed by next week, maybe I'll be wearing it. But hopefully you guys are joining along. Reminder, Heatherly is on sale through the end of the month. So you can get 20% off your Heatherly yarn. This is done in sport. It also applies to worsted weight, so you can grab it. It is a free pattern that you can download and join along. Yes, Chris, there are ends. It's actually not too bad. There's only 2 ends per stripe. So yes, it adds up, but really it's not too bad. It's not like, big motif projects with colors changing every round. They're still totally worth it, but this doesn't have too many ends to weave in. It's just the 2 at each end of your color change. So yeah, hopefully you guys are loving it. You're joining us for the crochet along. If you haven't already, you still have time. All the information is at the link that we put in there with the calendar of how everything is working. Okay. So my guest today is a wonderful designer that we get to call our friend over here at WeCrochet. And she may not be somebody that you know by name specifically because we don't get to see her face a lot, but you will know her by design when we start to show you what she works on for us. You know her, you love her, and we keep bringing her back. So thank you for joining us. We're going to bring in Brenda here. Let me bring her in. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Caitlin. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you. And Brenda is here today to talk about her Hooked on Socks book. We were so excited. This has been a long time in the making, a little embarrassing, but we got it done and it is phenomenal. I don't think it would have been as beautiful as it is had we not had to wait. So thank you for being patient with us and getting it to this point. It is beautiful. And I have to say, this is only our second collection with one designer. So we had Sarah's collection last year with Solstice, and now we have Brenda's collection with all crocheted socks, and we are so excited. I do want to make one quick call out. If you saw our aviary collection, this is also Brenda's pattern right there on the cover, our hummingbird cardigan. So you're going to want to check that one out too. We're actually going to talk about this full collection in more detail next week. So you'll actually get to see the projects. We'll talk about all of them that are in this collection, but that's also Brenda right there. And if you love, what was it? The taffy
poncho.
Poncho, that's what it was. That was in our big and little collection. That is absolutely phenomenal. That's also Brenda. Brenda is just sprinkled all throughout our website because we just love her. And we are so excited that she loves us enough to keep working with us and doing beautiful patterns.
You guys are fabulous, and I love your yarns. So I'm just sticking it out forever here.
Perfect. We have her hooked and she's not going anywhere. And we love it. We love it. Okay, so we're going to talk about Hooked on Socks. This is a brand new collection. Well, actually, I shouldn't. It's a little bit old, by a month. It came out in March, and this is just like the first time we've been able to sit down and talk about it. So it's
Mhm.
okay. It's still new. It's still fresh. We love it. It comes in a print version and an ebook version, so you can get either one. We're going to put a link in here that's going to take you to a page that shows you every individual pattern that you can purchase separately. It also has the book, print version, and the ebook version. There are also 4 socks available as a kit. So you can get the book, the yarn, and the hook that you need to make 4 of the socks in this book. So that's really great too. And we'll talk about that as we go, which ones those are. We have a link to check out just the kits if that's what you're interested in. We'll put that in here. And also, as we kind of go through them, like the first one, which is called Easy Like Sunday Morning, this comes in a kit. So if you're looking at this individual pattern, it'll say buy the kit. So you'll be able to get it right from there. So, socks. We have to take a minute and we have to just rewind. And we do have to tell everybody that inside the front cover, well, not the front cover, but the first couple pages here are telling you how socks are supposed to fit, where to measure your foot, gauge tips and tricks, and then a couple other tips and tricks that Brenda let us privy to put in the book here to make a successful first sock. So before we talk about what the socks are in this book, can you tell us a little bit more about why we might want to make crochet socks? Because they're different than knit socks, and they kind of get a bad rap that they're going to be too thick. They're not going to feel good on your feet. So
Mhm.
what can you say about socks and why you love them and like did a whole collection on them?
Well, if you guys have watched any of my other interviews, you might know that as soon as somebody tells me, "Oh, that doesn't really work in crochet," or I don't do that because I would rather knit that because it doesn't turn out very good," then that makes me like, "Okay, I'm gonna show you that this is gonna be awesome." It just like, fires me up. So I I had heard, and seen on some forums people talking about, oh, crochet socks, they don't stretch, they don't fit right, they're too thick to put in my shoes. I only knit them. And I'm like, no, you can totally crochet those. You can't just, use any old stitch pattern though. Like
Mhm.
there are certain stitch patterns that work better. You have to get something that's stretchy for one. And in crochet, that's just a little bit less stretchy than regular, stockinette knitting. If you're talking about single crochet, I guess I should say in
Mhm.
the round, which is what everyone's brain goes there first. Like, I can't do that because crocheting, it's just not very stretchy. But there's like a million different stitch patterns in crochet. I mean, an endless amount. And some of them are
Yeah.
very stretchy. Some of them are stretchier than knitting. And people just need to get that out of their heads that you can't crochet socks. So yeah, that just made me want to make a whole collection and be like, look, you can make cables, you can do different color
Mhm.
blocking, you can use all these different stitch patterns, and they can fit really well, and they can fit in your shoes if you use a thin yarn.
Right.
If you're using a thicker yarn like the Easy Like Sunday Morning, that's
Yep.
what the first one in there. Yeah. Um, that was a worsted weight yarn.
Right.
So that makes it really good. I can fit them in my boots, like in my winter boots.
Right.
And they're also really good for, slipper socks walking around the
Mhm.
house, but you can't really put those in like your regular shoes that you just wear unless you buy them bigger.
Right. Right.
But most of the others, oh, and there's another one that's worsted weight, but the rest of them are made out of sock weight and they fit inside your shoes.
Right.
Yeah, they're just as functional as a knitted pair of sock.
Yeah.
So,
And I will say too that it is very true what Brenda said that if you tell her it can't be done in crochet, she will find a way. Just like I know, Alyssa, I'm going to throw this one at you. We didn't talk about this because I just remembered it. The dandelion cardigan that you did for us a couple collections ago, guys,
mhm.
she steeked crochet.
Yeah.
Like
And it's not that
mind
hard.
blown, right?
Yeah.
It's not hard, but in knitting, things tend to kind of stay a little bit more, maybe. And
Mhm.
it's just the whole act of cutting your stitches.
Yeah, it
And it was
freaks
great.
people out. Totally
It was
freaks
great.
people out, but
Yeah.
you can completely do it. That's just yeah, that's definitely how I am. A lot of my designs come from a place of me being like, "I can do that. Of course I can do
Yeah.
that. I will figure out a way to make it awesome." So like someone can see it, you know, somebody who's a knitter and is looking down on the crochet world just maybe a little bit. If they saw it, they'd be like, "Oh, okay. All right, you changed my mind."
Hmm. Yeah. And, we really tried to organize these in the book so that you could kind of start with something um, I don't even want to say easier because I don't think any of these are super hard, but something to ease you into it because we did use the Heatherly yarn. We used it in a worsted weight, which, by the way, Heatherly yarn on sale, 20% off. Grab it, grab your book. Just saying. But we
Okay.
started off with something that had one basic stitch to it, minus the ribbing at the top, and it used a larger weight yarn to make it real
Mhm.
easy to jump into a first sock project if that's what you wanted. We should say too that throughout this entire book, there's totally different constructions. We didn't really do two exactly the same,
Mhm.
just so people could really learn different constructions. And what is this one? I can't remember.
I think that was cuffed down in
Yeah,
the
this is
round.
worked. Ankle is worked top down in the round, and this is using the extended single crochet.
Mhm, which
So
is
again,
very stretchy and flat,
yes.
and it's like my go-to for making socks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, I will say too, we talked about in here a lot of different things. Like this one is done with like what they would call an afterthought heel, that you're making the hole for the heel, but then you're coming back and adding it later. Some of them are worked right in with short rows. There's all kinds of different ways
Mhm.
to construct your socks. So we're going to talk about those. There is a question: which issue was the steeped pattern in? It is on Ravelry. It's on our website too. It's called the Dandelion Cardigan, and I think it was in issue 7. It's
I
on the
think it
front
was a
cover.
summer
Yeah,
issue, right? It's right on the front cover of
it's
the
the front cover
magazine
image.
too.
It's like a teal with, like, you can see the dandelion, at the top of it and everything. I'm pretty sure it was issue 7, but you'll be able to see it because it's right there on the front cover. So we can also pull that up and throw the link in there. But we did throw the link into all of Brenda's patterns so you can find it. There's the link for it. You can go directly to it. So the next one in the book is called our short and sweet socks. And so some of these socks are higher and are really great for putting in boots, like Brenda said, and some of
Mhm.
them are shorter. And so this is a little bit of a shorter sock. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this one and
Mhm.
what kind of got you started? Because this one and the next one are both done in chroma fingering,
Mhm.
and they kind of look the same because of the chroma fingering, but they're different. They're
Yeah, they're
different constructions.
differently constructed. So here's the one that we were talking about, the short and sweet, done in a this is my original sample. This was the colors that I chose. And I wanted to make it so that you could get a pair of socks out of one ball of the chroma because
Mhm.
I thought, the other myth is that, well, crochet is so expensive, it uses up all that yarn, you gotta buy 2 skeins, la la la. And I was like, well, you know what? We'll just make a little anklet sock, and then we can
Mhm.
make 2 fit out of a ball. But this one, it's been so long since I made this, but I'm pretty sure it's from the toe up, and then there's some extra short row. Let's see. There we go.
Mhm.
Short rows for the heel, and then you go around the ankle and finish up at the ribbing up at the top.
Yeah, so
So
this
that's
one also says that the heel is worked in turned rows
Yep.
while the rest of it is worked in the round.
Yep,
So,
exactly. Yep. So this
yeah.
is all worked in the round. You can see where it starts to get darker here. That's the part where we go back and forth, and the mirror image problems here.
Yeah.
In those turned short rows, and then you go around the ankle, and then you make the little join as you go ribbing here at the top.
Yeah.
And then the next sock that you were talking about, that's similar. So here's my original sample of that. It's a little bit longer, and this one uses a stitch that I call the knotted double crochet stitch, but it's also known as the herringbone half double crochet. But the reason that I always call it the knotted double crochet is because when you work it in a round like this, it doesn't look like a herringbone at all. It's
Right.
very nubbly on the outside. It has like all these little bumps, but on the inside, let me see if I can turn it. On the inside, it is super smooth against your skin. And
Right.
again, this is another really stretchy stitch pattern. So,
Right. And
you
that's
can
exactly what you want. Is when you're doing the crochet stitches, a lot of times people go, "Oh, it doesn't feel good on my foot. It's too bumpy." That's the
Mhm,
perfect stitch for socks because you still get texture on the outside to make it interesting, but on the inside it's nice and smooth, and that's the
mhm,
part that's going to be next to your foot that you're going to be stepping on and
mhm.
everything else. So that totally is a great stitch
Yep.
for socks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Um,
can I mention one quick thing too while we're talking
yeah.
about chroma?
Yeah.
Just for 1 second. So I wanted to show this sock. So this is the one we had just talked about in Heatherly. This
Mhm.
was my original sample, and I just wanted to let people know that you can also substitute with the worsted weight chroma
Right.
on that Easy Like Sunday Morning sock in case you're excited about the chroma like I am. I love
Yeah,
seeing the
we
color
love the
changes.
chroma because it does the color changing for you,
Mhm.
and yeah, we did change it from the original because we were trying to show people you can really make socks in so many different fiber contents and
Mhm.
things like that, but the chroma, especially for the ones that don't have, we're gonna get to them in a minute, but they don't have, like, all the texture to it, or they don't have the cables to it. Chroma is a really great option because you get that color change without having to do anything. You don't
Mhm.
have all the ends to weave in,
Right.
while you're working it, which also can be an irritant to your foot because where you weave in your ends, it gets a slightly bit thicker, which
Mhm.
could be a problem for your foot. So that's also a really great way to get the color change without having the additional rows to weave in.
Mhm. Yep.
So I think the next one in the book is one of my favorites, and it's called the Sideways Starter. And I love this because it is so untraditional. Like, when we think of socks, we think either toe up or we think top down or ankle down, to the toe.
Mhm.
This is completely different. This is a great way to get started with socks too if you're not a fan of working in the round. So we're going to talk about that. These are done in our Hawthorn. This is our Hawthorn tonal, but you could use any version of Hawthorn. They're all the same. It's just the way that it's dyed is different. You could also use a different sock weight yarn that we have, but we really loved the tonal and the way that it kind of played into the socks here. So do you want to tell us how this one is constructed and why it's so awesome?
Well, it's constructed sideways, like the name implies. You just go back and forth, and there are sections where you are working in the back loop to make a ribbing, and that makes it extra stretchy. And then there are sections of it where you're working under both loops like normal to make it not stretch as much, like on the sole of your foot. So I really paid a lot of attention to in that particular sock. That's actually my favorite sock of the whole collection because the way that all these different ways of it's just like tiny little variations, like whether you're going under the back loop or whether you're going under both loops, or there's half double crochet through the back bar in that one too around the heel. Um, I think, yeah, yes. So there's all these different variations that create different amounts of stretch in different places.
Mhm.
So it just makes it fit your foot really well. And that working it sideways like that. So what I mean by sideways is you're actually stitching vertically along the sock, and then
Mhm.
you do one little seam along the side of the sock when you're done. But that just allows it to stretch so much more. Because if you've ever
Right.
made a ribbing in crochet when you work, through the back loops of your stitches, if you're doing half double crochet or single crochet, whatever, that kind of ribbing,
Right.
um, it stretches so much in that if you're holding in the way you're going back and forth, it stretches so much vertically.
Right.
It doesn't stretch a whole lot sideways. And so I really wanted to put the stretch the way that I wanted it to fit, fit around
Yeah.
my foot. So
Yeah.
that's just, I mean, they're super stretchy. They're really, really
Yeah.
stretchy.
Yeah, and Chris said the sideways starters are very intriguing. My daughter has problem with most crochet socks because they don't have enough stretch. So that
Hmm.
is a really great option to try out if you've been having trouble with stretch to it. It's going to give you, I know a lot of times, like think about it this way. If you buy high boots, like knee-high boots or something like that, I know I run into a problem sometimes that like my calves, even though they're not huge, they sometimes are too big to fit into those high boots that have to get like zipped up and everything.
Hmm.
The sideways starters are a great option because that's where they're going to give you the stretch.
Hmm.
And the fact about the sideways starters that I love too, let me get this back, is so like if you look at this here, it doesn't have to stretch, again, backwards video, it doesn't have to stretch at your ankle, but it can stretch up higher on your calf. And it
Hmm.
does that because of the way the ribbing works in the sock. It's going to stretch where you need it to stretch and kind of still stay tight where it needs to stay tight as well.
Hmm.
So it really is a
Yep.
great sock if you have especially issues with kind of like larger calves or anything like that as you work up your sock.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one in the book is called the Heel Pop, and this one is done in our 100% Peruvian Highland wool palette. And what we did is we used a solid dark color here and then really made it pop in the heel because we called it Heel Pop. And I just love it. The great contrast. You don't have to do it that way. You could do it all in one color if you want to. You could do all kinds of different color combinations here, but I just loved the idea of really making your toes and your heels pop. Also a great thing for scrap yarn if you have a lot of a leftover palette, like say you made the dandelion cardigan, you don't need a full ball of all of those colors, so you probably have some left over. That would be perfect for your toes and your heels of a couple different pairs of socks. So do you want to tell us a little bit about this one?
Mhm, sure. So that one I was thinking about again about how people are concerned about the cost of their project and the palette is so inexpensive and there's a million colors. I mean, color for anybody's color palette right there.
Yeah.
So I was kind of focused on that and I really want to have a good like introduction. This is a very very easy sock pattern. It's very straightforward. Actually, it is very similar construction to the Easy Like Sunday Morning. I mean, it varies a little bit, but it does use the extended single crochet and the afterthought heel situation because you're adding that green later,
Mhm.
or maybe vice versa. What color? Yeah, you guys use green in the heel. I got
Yeah.
confused because I did too. These my originals were here with the little pistachio green in the toe and the
Yeah.
heel. Um, but yeah, it's just I just wanted it to be kind of a fun thing. You know, you really good introduction. It's like the plain Jane vanilla kind of sock, but it looks a little jazzier because you make those two separate colors. And I mean, you can really customize it for somebody. You know, if you're going to make socks for a pair of somebody or a pair of socks for somebody as a gift, you know, you can choose their school colors or
Right.
just two colors that they really like. It's just kind of a fun way to make them your own.
Yeah, we definitely love that. So those kind of end up our simple socks, if we want to call it that, or
Mhm.
our one stitch sock. Then we start to get a little bit fancier in our socks,
Mhm.
and we start off with the double chain socks here. Okay, so I have to say, I love these. And Brenda and I were talking about these, and I was like, hey, is that the same cable we did with the cathedral cable mitts? And she was like, oh my gosh, I think they're very similar. So we do also have a free pattern, the Cathedral Cable Mitts, which was part of our 12 weeks of gifting, I don't know, a year or so ago, that would match perfectly. And ironically, we picked blue for those and blue for these. So go figure.
Here they are
Um,
in green, if you
yeah,
guys
and
wanna
this
see
is
what they
done
look
in
like.
our
That's the cable on the it runs down
yep.
the front and the back of the sock.
I know, they're just so great. I love them, and they're done in our stroll fingering, so a great yarn, it feels wonderful, it's a
Mhm,
superwash merino nylon blend, so wonderful for socks, and so many different colors too. I love this cabling. I think
mhm.
it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Any tips or suggestions for people that might just be starting cables and putting them into their socks?
I think if you have never done cables before and you've never done socks before, you might wanna just try out another pair of socks just to kinda see, like, a plain version of the sock, unless you're just adventurous. If you're just an adventurous person, you'll be fine. Um, but really, these cables aren't too tricky. There isn't a lot of crossing so the thing that I find that most people have problems with when they cable is when you say front post double crochet and you're working behind the stitches that you just made.
Mhm.
That combination for people is just confusing to them because 'cause they're like, if it's a front post, it's on the front of the stitch. I don't understand." So, if you're doing that, which doesn't happen very often in this, when I design cables myself, I try to have them usually crossing over in the way that you naturally would do it, where you're working in front of the stitches that you just made.
Mhm.
That makes sense. So when you're doing cables, all you're doing to make things twist is you're just stitching things out of order. You're
Right.
just skipping ahead, like you skip a couple stitches, do some post stitches, and then you go back and fill in the stitches that you skipped over, right? So if
Right.
you skipped over your stitches and then you're filling them in, you naturally want to work over the stitches you just made. Like you just cross your hook and you're working on the front of your work. But if you get to a point where it says front post double crochet, while working behind the stitches you just made, you have to pull the post stitches that you just made a little bit forward and sneak your hook
Mhm.
in between, like on the back side of those post stitches you already made, but on the front side of your work. So it's like in between two layers almost where you're sneaking your hook in there. And I feel
Right.
like that's like the only sticking point for most people and just keeping track of, if you as for the most part, if you are making a post stitch into, another post stitch and you're crossing something, it counts as your stitch and you don't then again work behind that.
Right.
You have to remember pay attention to whether you're supposed to be skipping the tops of those stitches, if that makes sense, because you've already
Yep.
worked it, because you worked on the front of it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, the cabling is a little bit more of a challenge when you're working it, but you can ease your way into it. You can start working on just post stitches and things like that along the way
Mhm.
to get you there. And we've got two options that have post stitches in there that make really great. I do want to say Susan is asking the name of the booklet. It is called Hooked on Socks. And yes, you can get it over on the We Crochet website. We put a link in there. It comes in a print book or an ebook version, so you can pick out whichever one you like. The next one in the collection is called our Royal Diamond Socks, and I have those here. And these, I don't know, they're so gorgeous. I mean, it's got the basic flat stitches on the bottom so that you don't have a lot of the texture and the bumps for when you're wearing it. But then on the tops and the cuffing here, it has this beautiful kind of like latticey look to it. And it's just absolutely stunning. This was done in our Capretta yarn, which is really great because this is a 80% merino wool, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon, which is just a really phenomenal blend to have together. And it is also a fingering weight, so it's perfect for socks. So do you want to tell us a little bit about this one and what inspired you to make these?
Sure. So these, I wanted to have one pair of socks at least in this collection that is like the royal icing on the cake treat for your feet kind of thing. Like I really didn't want to hold back on the yarn. That yarn is so soft and warm, and it is like if I could just make all my socks out of that, I would be still be happy. I mean, it's
Yeah,
so nice. Um but yeah, I just wanted it to be a little bit, like a little bit of detail, but not something that's super crazy, just a
right.
little bit of detail. And it's not tricky. You're just making some treble crochet stitches on the front of some stitches below. And, it's, again, I wanted to pay a lot of attention to how it fits, how it feels on your foot, with the patterning just being on the top of the sock and then
Mhm.
the sort of smooth. Let's see, did I use extended single crochet? Yeah, my favorite for socks, extended single crochet on the sole of the foot there and then on the toe, just to make sure that it was nice and smooth and just feels really, I don't know, they're just so snuggly and they're so nice.
They really, really are. I
And
love them. They're not only beautiful, but they're really functional and
mhm.
wonderful to wear. So we love, love, love those. The last one we have in the collection is called the Rainy Day Socks. And these are done in Wool of the Andes Superwash Worsted. So it is, again, another worsted weight sock.
It looks like I lost Caitlin. I don't know if you guys can hear me still. Oh, here, maybe she's coming back. Oh, I'm not sure if this is a
Here I
problem
am.
with my was that me?
Nope, nope, it was me.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. All of a sudden it goes, there's a problem on your end. I was like, okay, I'm coming. I'm coming.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry.
No, no,
Uh,
that's okay.
we were talking about Wool of the Andes Superwash, and they just didn't want you all to know about this phenomenal yarn, I guess.
It's a
Um,
secret.
but it is a superwash yarn, so it really makes it easy to clean and everything else because of that superwash. You can throw it in. And I love these because, oops, I have a string on there. I love these because you can see here, you can wear it with the cuff folded down. You can also wear it with the cuff up if you're looking for something higher to fit inside of a boot. These are definitely going to be more of a boot sock than anything
Mhm.
else because they are with a worsted weight yarn. And if I take this off of here, which I'll call out. These are our wonderful sock blockers that you can get on our website. And these are really great for blocking your socks, which we can talk about in a minute here. But when you take a look, it's got this really great like arrow. Can you see that there? This arrow going up and down the front there and around the back here. And then you can just fold over the cuff if you want to, or you can leave it nice and high. Makes a really great slipper sock or to put into your boots. And again, we're using that third loop to get this nice little knit look here on the heel, which I love. Do you want to say anything about these socks?
Well, these socks are also they're made vertically as well, like the other pair that we had talked about. So you're going to be going back and forth along the length of the sock for most of it. And then the heel is like a little afterthought heel that you work in the round, and the toe you work in the round for that as well. And so, and there, of course, the reason I did that was because I really wanted them to be super stretchy. And
Mhm.
I have big calves. And so I appreciate them being able, not having, I didn't want people to make a sock and then try it on and be like,
Mhm.
another pair of socks that doesn't fit on my ankles or my calves. I wanted them to be really
Right.
stretchy and, like you said, is really versatile that you can wear. They actually increase in the size as they go up. And I did that so that when you fold them down, they fit over your sock, but also if you wear them up, that's getting up a little towards your calf, so they get a little bit bigger at that point
Right.
too, to fit nicely. So,
And I love these too because depending on what size boot you're wearing, you kind of have like a built-in boot cuff. Those
mhm,
are so popular. People are still making them, but it's kind of really great that it's like built in that you can kind of tuck it over your boot
yeah,
just a little bit,
mhm,
depending on what height of boot you
mhm.
are. So let's quick talk about blocking of socks just to let people know all about that. Because a lot of people, myself included at first, were like, why would I block socks? Is it just to show them off? Is it really necessary to block them? So, can you give us any tips or tricks or reasons for blocking, or what is your opinion on blocking socks?
Well, I block pretty much everything that I make. I mean, every once in a while there'll be something that I intentionally don't block. But the reason that I would recommend blocking these socks, so if it's made out of a wool, especially like the wool of the Andes, it gets softer and
Mhm.
drapier when you block it. And of course, you can make them match in size. You've got two, and
Right.
it's really hard to make things turn out exactly the same. I know I have that problem too. I think most people do. So that's another chance to kind of even things out and make your stitches look perfect and beautiful. And I mean, yes, you don't have to block your socks. You really don't. You could just wear
Right.
them. It's fine. But I don't know, just that extra you worked so hard on it and just
Mhm.
that extra little polish at the end just makes them look so nice and feel softer. And if you make the Easy Like Sunday Morning in the Heatherly, because that is a larger percentage of acrylic in it, so it's acrylic and wool, is it
Yes.
20/80?
Yes.
Okay. Um, so for things that are a larger percent acrylic compared to the wool, or if you were making a pair of socks out of Brava, say, or something like that, I would
Right.
definitely recommend steam blocking instead of wet blocking because the steam blocking, if you steam block acrylic, it gives it so much more softness and drape. It's crazy. And with
Yeah.
socks, especially my collection of socks, I crochet things at a fairly tight gauge when I'm making socks because they feel so much better on your feet when they're like not tight to your feet, but they have a
Right.
firm structure. They're not going to stretch out and I hate it when you're walking down the street and you can feel your sock kind of like moving down going under your foot. It drives me nuts. So I
Yeah.
really wanted to make these like a good structure so that they're going to stay around your foot and not wiggle out of place. So because I'm obsessed with that. I crocheted most of the things in this collection at like a tighter gauge than I would if I was making a garment, a sweater or something like that. So when you're making something out of acrylic and you're crocheting it fairly tightly, it's going to feel a little bit stiff. But when
Right.
you steam it, it's like a game changer. If you guys have never done that before, just make yourself a really tight swatch of acrylic and steam it. And then you'll be like, wow, she was actually right about that. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
But we should say too that because acrylic is what acrylic is, you don't want to hold your steamer on it too long in
Mhm.
one spot, or you will start to melt it. Or some people say that you're killing the acrylic, and it
Mm.
kind of all starts to go together. So when you're
Like,
steaming, you do want to just keep it steadily moving. It's better to go over it multiple times than to hold it in one spot and
uh-huh.
let it sit. Just so
Yeah.
everybody's
And
aware how
and the
that
way
works.
that the way that I steam things, I just use an iron. I'm not using a handheld steamer, which is I
Yeah.
think maybe what you're talking about because 'cause you're,
Yeah.
like, doing this vertically. So
Yeah.
if you use an iron, like, never touch the
Right.
garment or your socks. Don't actually touch it with your iron. So if this is what if you're steaming this oh, here, I have a sock prop. So if you're steaming this, you're gonna put the iron above it and not
Right.
touching it, like, an inch away, and then you can move the iron to the side and kind of pat it with your hand to shape it. It's like
Yeah.
putty in your hands at that point. When you give it that steam, it makes those fibers, those synthetic fibers, it warms them up and it helps them relax. And, you can pat them into the shape you want them in. And then as it cools off, it retains that shape.
Yeah, it's really great. It's totally worth it. I 100% agree with that one. So, yeah. So go ahead and block your socks, either
Yep.
steam them or wet block them. You will be much happier. And again, it just really puts them back into shape from when you're wearing it. Just like when you wear a garment, like a sweater, when you first wear or when you're first done with it, you want to block it so that it gets to the shape you want it to be. And then after you wear it a couple times, yes, blocking helps to clean it if you're putting in like a wool wash or whatever else, so it's not getting all sudsy and stuff, but it's also going to get the stitches to go back to kind of where they were before, and it's going to help shrink things up where it needs to be
Hmm.
shrunken. I don't know, that's not the right word, but it like tightens things up where it needs to be tightened and kind of re-loosens things where it needs to be re-loosened, and you can kind of manipulate it. So blocking is totally worth it. Even if you don't put it like on a sock blocker, you could
Hmm.
just lay it over top of something. The sock blocker just gives you a little bit of extra air pocket in there to dry, maybe a little bit faster. But I always say just put a fan on it and it'll
Hmm.
dry nice
Yeah.
and fast. But just leave them flat to dry and you'll have wonderful socks that you're going to love to wear.
Yeah, when I'm blocking socks, because I don't have a sock blocker, which I should get that sock blocker you keep showing me, now I'm tempted. But because I don't have my own sock blocker, I just block my sock like I'll shape one and then I'll shape the second one directly on top of it so I know they're exactly the same. And I let them dry for a while like that until it kind of has enough, until the top layer kind of has enough structure that I can move it to the side carefully. And then I
Mhm.
know that they're gonna be the same shape, and then they can both dry freely because, the one on the bottom is not gonna be able to dry
Right.
with a wet sock on top of it. But
Right.
that's my method, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a great tip. I wouldn't have even thought of that, but that's a great way to get them to be similar in
Mhm.
their shape and size. So, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about hooked on socks. Everybody is really, really loving this. We have so many sock lovers, or at least sock uh,
Those who
not
are curious?
enthusiasts, like yes, sock curious. There we go. That's a good word. Who want to try socks or get into socks or take a look at socks. It's totally worth it. Try some out. Start at the beginning of the book where we've got the simpler socks that are one stitch throughout. You don't have to do a ton of shaping. You don't have to do a ton
Mhm.
of different stitches. Learn the basics of sock construction and then move on into our more complicated stitches where you're manipulating them a little bit more and you're going to have so much fun making these socks, I think. So,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us and
Yeah,
making this wonderful collection.
of course,
And
I'm so happy to be here, and it was really fun working up all those socks and coming up with those designs. It was really I loved it, and now I have a whole bunch of socks for this winter, and I'm very excited about that.
yeah, and you're going to be seeing a lot more of Brenda. She is in the aviary collection that we had just come out. We're working with her for this fall. So get used to seeing Brenda because she's wonderful, phenomenal, and we have her coming back and back and back. So thank
Yay.
you so much and have a wonderful day. Everybody else, have a wonderful day. We will be back next Wednesday at our regular time to talk about our aviary collection. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.